Hello. Today, let us take a closer look at the Iambic Pentameter blank verse. Songs or verse forms are an inseparable part of man in all generations, in all cultures, and all civilizations. The creation, man, and his songs are governed by different notes of rhythms. Unlike other forms of literature, songs and poems have different musicality to them. To read a poem is to hear with the eyes, says Octavio Pes. Let us now look at how poet creates sounds, rhythms, and meanings to their poems. They use many devices, many forms, and many techniques. This is how the rhythms are created in poems. To read a poem is easy, but to write a poem is not that easy. Before we understand poetic meter, we need to first understand what syllables are. Syllable is a single unit. Every word has at least one syllable. How do we find out the number of syllables in a word? There are two ways of finding syllables. By finding the number of times you can count the vowel sounds, not the vowels exactly, A, E, I, O, U, but only the sounds. Example, hotel, O and A are the vowel sounds. Garden, R and A are the vowel sounds. Number two, you can find the syllables by counting the number of beats. Example, cat. It has one vowel sound, one beat and one syllable. University. There are five vowel sounds and so five beats and so five syllables. Examination. There are five vowel sounds, five beats, and so it takes five syllables. Let us understand what stress is. The emphasis we give on a particular word is called stress. We don't pronounce all syllables the same way. Some syllables are given more emphasis. We use ictus for the stressed syllables and brief symbol for the unstressed syllable. Example, father. Fa is a stressed syllable and the is unstressed. You look at the second word, amazing. Meter. Poems can have any number of lines. Each line is a group of syllables. These syllables are broken down into feet. Syllables make a foot. Foot makes meter. There are many different kinds of meters. Monometer, dimeter, trimeter, tetrameter, pentameter, hexameter, heptameter and octameter. Rhythm consists of meters. Meter depends on two factors in a poem. Number one, by the number of feet you find in one line. Number two, the different types of foot. So you have iamb, which has one weak syllable followed by one strong syllable. Trochee, one strong syllable followed by one weak syllable. Anapist, two weak syllables followed by one strong syllable. Dactyl, two strong syllables followed by two weak syllables. Spondy, two strong syllables and pyrrhic, two weak syllables. Now let us look at what blank verse is. Blank verse is a literary form referred to poetry that is written in unrhymed iambic pentameter. But it is a metered composition that does not rhyme and almost always written in iambic pentameter. Penta means five. That means five stress iambic verse. Iamb means a metrical foot, a unit. One unit is equal to one iamb. A short syllable followed by a long syllable or an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable is what you call it as an iambic pentameter. And iamb is called a rising meter. Like the pattern of the heartbeat, da-dum, 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 you find, a kind of a rising meter or a short syllable followed by a long syllable. Poetry written in this way is composed of 5 iambs and 10 syllables and fall into unstressed and stressed pattern. Definitely, this has no end rhymes. Example, I want to eat this green banana. I is unstressed and want is stressed. To is unstressed and eat is unstressed. So you see, unstressed followed by a stressed or a short syllable followed by a long syllable makes one foot. So there are 5 feet in this line and 10 syllables in this line. So you see, this is how you read an unstressed followed by a stressed. I want to eat this green banana. And look at the second example. Shall I compare the two a summer's day? So, shall I forms one unit. Unstressed followed by a stressed syllable. Compare, unstressed followed by a stressed syllable. So, in that way, you have 5 feet and 10 syllables. So, you call this to be Iambic Pentameter lines. Blank verse is a term which was originally taken from the French blank, meaning white, in the sense of left white or requiring something to be filled in, often used in long poems and in dramatic verse. Its form is flexible, adapts itself well to monologues and soliloquies. It has been a favorite and dependable form for a variety of moods and subjects over the past 400 years. Blank verse is considered best for dramatic verse in English, since it is the verse form closest to the rhythms of everyday English speech. It is the dominant verse form of the English drama and the narrative poetry since the mid-16th century. Such verse is blank in rhyme only, having a definite meter, although variations in meter are sometimes used. It was first used in Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey's translation of books 2 and 4 of Virgil's Aeneid, composed sometime in 1540. Gorboduc, published in 1561, was the first blank verse tragedy that illustrates how monotonous such verse could be. Adopted as a chief verse form in Elizabethan verse drama, and was used by Milton in Paradise Lost and in a wide range of subsequent meditative and narrative poems. Probably the most common and influential form that English poetry has taken since the 16th century. Paul Fussell has claimed that about 3/4 of all English poetry is in blank verse. Christopher Marlowe was the first English author to make full use of the potential of blank verse. He established it as the dominant verse form for English drama in the age of Elizabeth I and James I. Major achievements in English blank verse was done by William Shakespeare, who wrote much of the content of his plays in unrhymed Iambic Pentameter. Miltonic blank verse was widely imitated in the 18th century by such poets as James Thomson and William Cowper. Romantic English poets such as William Wordsworth, Shelley, and Keats used blank verse as a major form. Alfred Lord Tennyson became particularly devoted to blank verse in his long narrative poem, The Princess, as well as for one of his most famous poems, Ulysses, and also he used it in Idylls of the King. Robert Browning used blank verse in his The Ring and the Book, and many of the dramatic monologues of Browning were written in blank verse. T.S. Eliot has used blank verse in The Waste Land, which was published in 1922. A large number of meditative lyrics from the Romantic period to the present were written in blank verse. Coleridge's Frost at Midnight, Wordsworth's Tintern Abbey, Tennyson's Tears, Idle Tears, Wallace Stevens' Sunday Morning are the best among the blank verse. Among American poets, Hart Crane and Wallace Stevens are notable for using blank verse in extended compositions at a time when many other poets were returning to free verse. There are different types of blank verse poetry. You can call them as Iambic Pentameter blank verse, Chalky blank verse, Anapist blank verse, and Dactyl blank verse. Blank verse was written with a purpose to create auditory effect in the minds of the readers and the listeners. Let me read one sample of the blank verse from Robert Frost's Mending Wall. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswell under it, and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes caps even two can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair, where they have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of height. So this is the way you read blank verse, which gives such a joy to hear and also to read. Poetry is an art, the chief of the fine art, the easiest to dabble in, the hardest to reach true excellence, says Edmund Clarence Stedman. Now you have understood how poets create rhythms in the poems and meanings and musicality to their poems. If at all you want to make a mark as a poet, try writing in blank verse.